Welcome to this explainer. I was just looking at the data for the upcoming 2026/27 Premier League summer transfer market, and I gotta tell you, my jaw literally hit the floor. We're looking at something totally unprecedented in football history. The sheer scale of this is unlike anything we've ever seen. We're witnessing massive structural shifts, ground-up tactical rebuilds, and astronomical fees that are completely rewriting the rulebook of how you build a football club. So grab your notebooks because we've got a lot of really fascinating ground to cover today. Over £1 billion. That is the staggering, jaw-dropping amount of money Premier League clubs have already dumped into the market this summer. And you know what the craziest part is? The transfer window hasn't even closed yet. We literally still have weeks to go before the September 1st deadline, and that £1 billion barrier is already way in our rearview mirror. This isn't just regular football inflation, guys. It is an absolute explosion of market valuation. Here's our quick roadmap for today. We're going to start with the £1 billion window, then check out the biggest spenders, dive into Liverpool's new era, analyze Carrick's United blueprint, and wrap it all up with a net spend reality check. Okay, let's dive right into Section 1, the £1 billion window, and the massive market inflation that's driving this whole frenzy. We're seeing British transfer records not just broken, but absolutely shattered multiple times in a single window. Manchester City laid down a massive marker first by paying Nottingham Forest £116 million for Elliot Anderson. I mean, wow. But then, almost out of nowhere, Chelsea immediately topped it, securing Morgan Rogers from Aston Villa for a mind-bending £117 million. When players are moving for these types of astronomical figures, it sets a completely new, incredibly inflated baseline for literally every other negotiation across Europe. Moving right along to Section 2, the biggest spenders. Let's look specifically at the clubs making those massive £200 million plus outlays. The spending at the very top of the food chain is incredibly aggressive right now, and it's heavily driven by distinct club crises and major managerial shifts. Take Tottenham, for example. They've spent just under £230 million, including over £200 million on Sandro Tonali, Matías Fernandes, and Jan-Paul van Hockeys alone. Why so much? Well, they're desperately and very expensively trying to bounce back from shocking back-to-back 17th place finishes. Meanwhile, Chelsea is leading the entire pack with a staggering £277.6 million spent, aggressively backing their new boss Xabi Alonso with premium additions like Morgan Rogers and Maxence Lacroix. These clubs aren't just spending money, they're literally trying to buy their way out of a transition phase. Let's shift gears to Section 3, Liverpool's new era, and the massive rebuild happening under Antonio Iraola. It is without a doubt the most difficult question in football. How do you replace an era-defining legend? Following Arne Slot's departure, a tough trophyless campaign, and a really disappointing fifth-place finish, Antonio Iraola has arrived from Bournemouth to take the reins. But he's inheriting a squad that has essentially lost its entire historic core. Liverpool is facing a drastic, absolute changing of the guard right now. The departures are iconic. You've got Mohamed Salah released on a free transfer after a decade of absolutely phenomenal service, Andy Robertson joining Spurs for free, and Ibrahima Konate heading off to Real Madrid. That is a massive, massive void of experience and leadership in that dressing room. So to execute Iraola's high-intensity vision, they've brought in a completely new guard. They actually fended off Chelsea to sign physical French center-back Jeremy Jacquet for £60 million, viewing him as the long-term successor to Virgil van Dijk. And they added Spanish World Cup winning attacker Victor Munoz for $34.5 million. It's a complete structural reset for the club. Now let's move to Section 4 and see how this all builds into Carrick's United blueprint, focusing heavily on Michael Carrick's brand new tactical system. So after taking over as interim boss from Ruben Amorim and securing a fantastic third-place finish, Carrick absolutely earned his permanent contract. And he did it using this very specific system, the asymmetric 4-2-3-1. It's a wonderfully fluid tactical setup. Instead of having a fullback invert into midfield like we see with all of Pep Guardiola's disciples, Carrick actually drops his left back into a three-man first line during the build-up. This gives his right back absolute freedom to just bomb forward down the wing. The whole system is built on mid-block beating. Essentially, they're inviting the opponent to hold the ball near the halfway line just to draw their press in, and then bam, they strike vertically into the wide-open space left behind. It's brilliant to watch. But to make a system like that actually work, you need very specific player profiles, and United's summer business reflects that perfectly. They totally overhaul their midfield engine room, bringing in Yuri Tielemans from Villa for $35 million and Andres Santos from Chelsea for $50 million. These two are going to provide the much-needed composure to break opposition lines and feed their primary playmaker, Bruno Fernandes, who, let's not forget, is coming off a frankly unbelievable, record-breaking 21-assist season. Then you've got Luke Shaw, an elite tackler who is absolutely essential for that dropping left-back role, and Benjamin Sesko, the clinical finisher up top, ready to exploit all those quick vertical attacks. It is a highly deliberate, completely custom-built squad. Finally, let's zoom back out for Section 5, the net spend reality check, where we compare the flashy gross spend against actual incoming revenue. Now, what's really interesting here is how this completely reframes our understanding of the transfer market. We talked a minute ago about Chelsea splashing nearly £278 million. That sounds completely reckless, right? But look at the other side of the ledger. They've actually received £124 million in outgoing sales. That was heavily funded by selling players like Marc Cucurella to Real Madrid and Andre Santos to Manchester United for $50 million plus each. The gross spend is what makes the flashy headlines, for sure, but this incoming cash dynamic completely changes their actual financial exposure. When we actually rank these teams by net spend, a fascinating divide in the modern Premier League emerges. Up at the top, you obviously still have the heavy investors operating deep in the red. Chelsea at $153.6 million, Tottenham at $149.7 million, and Manchester City at $144.1 million. But look all the way down at the bottom of the rankings. Aston Villa and Nottingham Forest are operating in massive 9-figure profits. Forest essentially funded their entire window just by selling Elliot Anderson to City for $116 million, and Villa did the exact same thing by moving Morgan Rogers to Chelsea. It's honestly a masterclass in exploiting the desperation of the biggest spenders to perfectly balance their own books. So, what does this all mean? The money has been spent, the tactical blueprints have been meticulously drawn, and the old guards have been cleared out. We've literally seen £1 billion exchange hands in a matter of weeks, completely reshaping the landscape of the league. But the ultimate question remains, and it's what I want to leave you with today. Which team's billion-pound gamble is actually going to pay off when the whistle blows on the pitch? We're going to find out very soon. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep your eyes peeled for those tactical shifts, and I'll catch you next time as we continue to break down the absolutely fascinating world of football.